by helping to reduce that tension on the spinal cord, you can produce the awakening experience. The mechanics in the background that come along with that awakening experience is a reduction in the tension of the spinal cord, the central nervous system that's driving the pathology you're trying to help. Hey y'all, today's video I'm going to chat a bit about why just the pursuit of spiritual awakening might in a strange way address these pathologies that you've been struggling with. Fibromyalgia, depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, long COVID, frozen shoulder, migraines, rheumatoid arthritis, intense menopause, on and on. Why would I say all of that? And please forgive the background. I'm moving in a couple of days, and so it's all cleared out. Okay, and it's a really making this as much for doctors as anybody else, why you might actually consider facilitating spiritual, like the tactical approach, mechanical approach to spiritual awakening as a suggestion for the people you're here to serve. The quick answer is when your patients or anybody has a resistance to something that's going on, let's say pain, right? There's a pain either psychological, something that's happening in the moment that we don't want, there's a resistance that comes up. The physiology attendant with every single resistant response to the moment is stretching of the spinal cord. Stretching of the spinal cord does what they call adverse mechanical spinal cord tension, AMCT. You stretch the spinal cord, and the first thing that happens internally is the person gets distance from the felt sense of purpose, of actually being aligned with the spiritual or energetic intelligence that's building all of this. There's a separation, there's a disconnect, there's a fragmentation from the purpose of them being here. That's the internal subjective experience, a confused state. It's caused by that separation from the alignment with their core connection with God, Holy Spirit, whatever they want to call the thing that is growing them. Pathology starts and grows in that state of confusion. That's the internal state. The external thing that you could measure would be the mechanical spinal cord tension, tension on the nerves, a dysregulated autonomic nervous system. It puts somebody in that state of resistance, some fight, flight, freeze, puts them, in my case, personally, would put me into deer in the headlights. When I say tactical or mechanical approach to spiritual awakening, what I'm talking about isn't working with thoughts, isn't working with the concept of God or mystical or religious. It's actually really doing something very specific with our attention and our focus so that the person, us, them, can realign first and foremost with that that thing that is growing them. But if you're stuck in that state of confusion because your spinal cord is taut, they've lost access to where they are. Just like if you think about those magic posters, the stereograms, they're a bunch of squiggly lines. When you first look at those things, you're like, what is this? It's a bunch of squiggly lines. But somebody who knows how to do that, they're like, no, it's not. It's a school bus with a dolphin swimming through it. Can't you see it? This is the challenge always come along with the spiritual awakening discussion, the mystical awakening discussions. Like, no, it's here. It's been here all the time, but you can't perceive it. Well, if you can't perceive it, then let's work with the organ of perception. The main organ of perception that organizes all of the sensation is the central nervous system, spinal cord specifically. When it is stretched, sensation is contorted. They lose access to be able to look at the big picture, like the stereogram. They can't see the embedded, really sophisticated, nuanced intelligence that's there looking back at them, you can't perceive it. In that moment of perception, where everything falls into place, what happens? The breath moves all the way up to the spinal cord and starts to soften the tension. Softening the tension internally creates that experience of everything coming home. The grip softens and releases. They start to be content and safe. And it's a revolution in their experience of themselves in this world. They shift from breathing to being breathed. The perception clears as I experience myself as being breathed by something that is bigger than me, something that's doing this experience, and I am part of it because I'm being breathed by it. So the experience needs to come first. The mental goes, what the hell am I in? What is this? This isn't what I know to be true. So the mental does have to then start to create a new narrative as to what this is, because it's not the narrative that we've been told in medical school, being told by the culture. So there's an integration of duality, which is where we've come from, and non-duality, which is a perceptual experience. Duality is the mental narrative that we put over the world so we can understand and navigate this world. But when you introduce a non-dual experience, any mental structure, any belief system that doesn't support the non-dual, then there's a conflict. Internally, I either have to look away from this experience because this can't be real. I must be hallucinating, I must be crazy, I must be nuts, I must be on drugs, I must be dumb, I must be a sheeple. But when you listen to the reports of everybody that's had this experience, they come back and they say, this was more real than everyday life. How is that so? If this is more real, if an integration of my perceptual organ, an integration and an increase in complexity of my perceptual organ allows me to perceive the world in a way I never have before, it's going to require an upgrading of my thought process and my belief process. So if you had patients that actually could cure their confusion, their resistance, and their spinal cord tension that's driving these pathologies you're busy trying to treat, but you're trying to treat people that are like buckets with holes in them. They put in whatever medications in the top and it just goes like water right out the holes and they just keep needing more and more and more. And then you know what you get stuck with. You get all of these competing side effects with all the drugs and stuff. And they may need them, but let's plug the holes in the perception that's creating a confused and fighting and resistant reaction to the world themselves, first and foremost, and then others. So let's help them remember who they are, and then we can help them find the others. Then they remember who they are, and then they become busy little healing bees by going out there and clearing up the confusion, because that's all that clear people can do is go and enjoy their day by helping to clear the confusion, waking others up. And that's really kind of the leading edge of where we are these days in culture. You just watch what's happening with all the psychedelics. And the psychedelics, when they're microdosing, it doesn't seem to be really producing this big transformation in how people experience themselves and others. But if people have a sizable enough dose, say, of mushrooms, and they come back and they report, oh my gosh, this was one of the top 5 experiences of my life, what is it that's happened? It's changed the way they perceiving themselves and the other. So if you can help to mechanically reproduce that way of organizing their perception of the world by helping to reduce that tension on the spinal cord. You can produce the awakening experience. The mechanics in the background that come along with that awakening experience is a reduction in the tension of the spinal cord, the central nervous system that's driving the pathology you're trying to help. So let's go for the clarity result and the contentment and the ease and the safety and the non-resistance and the non-fighting. And when I was in practice, I think in practice, I saw something over 50,000 people. And what I realized I was doing over and over and over and over and over again with everybody was how to help the person clear up the internal state of confusion so they could experience themselves as a blob of flesh that's being breathed and being thought and being emotioned. When they could shift into that receiver mode, receiving them, the breath coming in. It was a game of focus. Where to put the focus, just like that stereogram, that magic poster. Where to put the focus. And when the focus gets close, we automatically start to lock in and lock on. And then the confusion falls away. But myself, like so many others, walked for years and years and years not knowing that's the problem. So we don't know that we need to look differently. If we don't know that we need to look differently, then we don't look differently. And we continue kind of stumbling in the fog. And then it just gets shitty, right? And then we go to the providers, and the providers give us something, but it doesn't end the foundational issue, which is I'm in the fog, I'm disconnected from the thing that's growing me. And the clearing of the fog, this seeing that embedded stereogram everywhere, that the name for that experience is yoga, is union, seeing clearly. So you don't have to go start stretching on your yoga mat. But if you look at yoga and the folks who have awakened, they're like, well, what are the mechanics of this? I pay attention to how I breathe. Sometimes if I align myself and my posture in such a way that makes me being breathed easier and more ecstatic, I'm going to want to do it. So if you want to practice for this, I've got another video on here called Yawn Yoga. Yawn Yoga, yawn like this. Because the yawn is what? It's the other trying to come in, soften the resistance, and pull your internal sense of self back into dream state and back from dream state back into deep dreamless. And when we can figure out how to use our focus to align ourselves with that intelligence that's using the yawn to soften our resistance, and we can use that as a practice to just soften our resistance, just soften our resistance, then the thing that's trying to bring us the life that we're here to live can actually deliver a lot more. When we just practice that particular focus ritual all the time. Then we're really putting ourselves in the experience of receiving that which is given to us. But if we focus on what's wrong and what hurts, and we continue to bring our focus there to try to fix that, we resist, we stretch the spinal cord, we disconnect, and then then we don't have access to the thing that's putting this together in the first place. We don't have access to the help from whatever this is. And so then we're busy being our intelligent little selves trying to fix the problems. And then saying that, well, I'm going to get to my practice later, but I got to fix these problems first. I got to do my to-do list. Yes, the to-do list. Yes, the pathologies. Yes, the treatment. Yes, to all of that stuff. But first, do some work, 10, 15 minutes towards softening the resistance. Then you can get to your to-do list, but you're going to feel included in some kind of bigger picture as they're doing it, as you're doing it. And really, it's just a mechanical thing. Like the mechanics of heart opening, the mechanics of spiritual awakening, brought all the way down to anatomy and physiology, is the startle reflex. Startle reflex stretching spinal cord from occiput to coccyx. And that's put on a feedback loop. That's how you create confusion, create disconnection, and maintain it. So helping somebody find the mechanics of softening right there, for those of you who are doctors or treaters or healers or helpers, if you can have some kind of aspect of your practice that allows people to soften that startle reflex, you're gonna be laughing with the miracles that just keep coming. So that's the end of my rant for the morning. I'm gonna sit here and look at the sunshine for a bit. Right, Jill?